Well, hello. Today we're going to be continuing with part 2 of looking at how Vue, the Vue framework, can make our life a little bit easier when we're building web forms. In part 1, we looked at vModel and a few of its modifiers, trim, number, and lazy. And today we're going to be continuing on with a lot more input fields. So I'm going to make a field set so we can start grouping things together. And a legend is like a label for a field set. We'll just call this text. So let's put this field set around our text groups here and format that for you. Good. You can see it just put a nice box around those fields. And I'm going to copy and paste a whole lot of fields in here. These are all basically text at their fundamental level. So you can see what this is doing. We've got a date field, and this will take in a date, it'll validate it and turn it into a date, a date time local, time. Now, you'll notice date time is just behaving like a basic text field. Well, if it doesn't recognize, if the browser doesn't recognize the type, then it will just default to the behavior of a basic text field. So be aware that all these fields exist. They're not all supported across all browsers. And search always seems to default back to a text field behavior. Password, very useful for logins. Color, kind of a fun one. Well, I'll do that as a yellow. There we go. And you can see as I changed it, the text for all the others changed. So that's kind of cool field to have. Now email. Email is, this will validate email addresses. You can write your own validator if you want, but it's actually a little bit complicated to do, and the browser just does it for you. So I don't really know why you would want to write your own email validator these days. It's actually quite complicated to validate an email address. It's quite a number of complicated rules. Telephone, that's useful for mobile devices especially, those fields, and URL. So that will validate as a URL. So those, and you'll notice that all of them are just done using vModel equals simple text. And it works for all of these things that default back to a basic text field. So let's look at our next set. And technically this next set is a number type again, or a text type again, but it's a number. It narrows things down to numbers. So we can see we've got our number field here, and our number field is affecting everything else, but there's another type of field that deals with numbers, and it is called range. So we can see we've got a range here, and a range goes from 0 to 100 by default. You can change its min and max values, but I'm also going to point out something else here. You notice that as I'm moving range around, it's changing the value up here, and that value is in quotes. It is a string. If I change number, it's no longer in quotes. It's an actual number. That's one thing that vModel does for us. It converts whatever value it is into a number for us. It doesn't do that for range. So let's, because we don't really want to affect everything up here, so let's make a new variable, simple number and simple range. And these variables don't exist yet, so I got to go up and create them. So this will be called simple number, and we'll give it a default value of 0, not 0, 1, no, just 0. And we'll call this simple range, and we'll give this a default value of, say, 50. Good, and we'll do a refresh so that we can see the variables in our Vue tool here. So you notice that it has a default value of 50. That's fine, but the moment we start moving it around, it's got quotes in it, it's a string again. And this, our V model, is converting it to a number for us. So let's move on to another type of form tag that you're probably not going to be familiar with. It's actually very rare. It's called the output tag. Yes, we've been dealing with input tags and a text area tag, but there is an output tag. Let's see what an output tag looks like. It looks like nothing. Well, you can see it changed size here when we saved it. So see, commented out, it's minimized. Uncomment it, it changes size. So it's recognizing that there's something there, but it doesn't display anything. And really, I should mention that really what it's displaying is the label. So that's what it's registering. The label is getting registered. Okay. So now, since most people are not going to be familiar with how a name tag works, I'm going to do it as a basic HTML. And what an output tag does is it outputs something that we want to generate, some value we want to generate. And we're going to generate that value using an on input event. There we go. And our sum dot value is going to be equal to, well, okay, I said we're going to be getting our values here from number. So ID, we're just going to call this num, and ID range. There we go. So now back up here in our event, we can do num dot value plus range dot value. So how is this going to work? Well, look at that. That's weird. What it's doing is it's taking both these values and concatenating them together as if they're strings. So let's convert these into numbers, which is what we want. And now, there we go, 109, 9. So it's now summing up numbers as opposed to concatenating strings together. So that's how it works as an HTML. There we go. But we want to know, how does it work as a Vue? So to do that, let's give it a value equals, and I'm going to call this value, and the colon means that there's a variable, and the variable sum does not exist yet, so we got to go up and create it. Sum equals, And what we're going to make is a computed value. See, we had to compute the total here for basic HTML. For Vue, we have to compute our value, and the moment I put in computed, it imported, our editor imported computed for us. Thank you very much, editor. And computed takes a function, so let's do an arrow function, and we're going to be returning simple number value plus simple range value. Oh, let's see how this works. Oh, a 0.25, and again, what we're doing is we're concatenating strings together. And if I come up with a refresh here, you'll see, yeah, there it is. Simple range, that's a text. So if we want to change, we can use the, well, we can do a parse int again, that will work. But I'm just going to do a plus unary operator, and that will convert it in our function to a number. So our computed value now is giving us a number instead of a concatenation of strings. Great. Now, there is one more way that we can do this, deal with this number thing. vmodel.number modifier. Now you notice simple range is a string right now. So the moment I save this, and I'll refresh it, there we go. It's a number, and it stays a number without the quotes. That means it's no longer a text field, a text with string. So great. That is how we can deal with a lot of this. Now, in truth, you're probably not going to be dealing with an output field. In the practical world, you're probably going to be using just a template. And there we go. So you might think, oh, an output field. I would want to use that because when I submit the form, it gathers all the data together and puts it up. It wouldn't do that as a template. Well, the truth is it doesn't do it as an output field either. The values of output fields are ignored by a submission. So say you want that value. How would you get it? Well, we can do a hidden field. So what does a hidden field look like? Type equals hidden. So what does it look like? It looks like nothing. It didn't even change its size of the field to tell us that there was something there. So a hidden field is just not visible at all. And it's very useful. In this case, we wanted to, let's give it a name equal to total. And we can give it the value of sum. And the colon means that we're getting the variable. So now, if we ever submit the form to the server, it will give a name value of total equals whatever our value is, which right now it's 97. So, hidden input fields, or hidden fields, are actually quite useful for many things. So let's just take a look at another reason we might use it. Session ID. And server generated characters. There we go. And oh, there we are. Get rid of the colon so it's now a string literal and not some variable that it's looking for. So session IDs are very useful for when you're logged in. Now I know some of you out there are saying, but session IDs are put into cookies. And you're right, session IDs are put into cookies. But if you put your session ID in a cookie, you should be aware of cross-site request forgery tokens. And what is a cross-site request forgery token? Well, it's possible for malicious users to send in fake requests to the server. It's able to hack that cookie as though it were real and legitimate. So what a server will do is it will put a cross-site request forgery token inside a hidden field, and then when that form gets submitted back to the server, it looks at it and says, okay, is the cookie correct? Yes. Is the cross-site request forgery token valid? If yes, good, it's a valid request. Otherwise, it gets rejected. So there we go. We have covered a number of fields here. Some very common, some a little rare. And I'll be putting this code up to GitHub when it's ready in a little bit here. And thank you for watching for this video. Hi.